First contact. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Jake Harrison as he piloted his small exploration vessel, the Starseeker, through an uncharted sector of the galaxy. At 32 years old, Jake had spent the better part of a decade charting new star systems for the Earth Exploration Corps, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to encounter. A proximity alert blared through the cockpit, startling Jake from his thoughts. He quickly scanned his instruments, eyes widening as he detected a large object drifting nearby. "Computer analysis," he commanded, his heart racing with excitement and trepidation. "Object appears to be an alien vessel of unknown origin." The AI responded coolly. "Severe damage detected. Life support systems critical." Jake's mind raced. First contact with an alien species was strictly regulated by Earth's government, but the thought of leaving someone to die in the cold vacuum of space was unthinkable. Making a split-second decision, he maneuvered the Starseeker closer to the damaged ship. As he approached, Jake gasped at the sight before him. The alien vessel was unlike anything he had ever seen. Sleek, almost organic in its design, with what appeared to be bioluminescent patterns pulsing weakly across its hull. Scorch marks and debris surrounding the ship told a grim tale of a recent attack. "Any life signs?" Jake asked, already preparing for a rescue mission. "Affirmative. 4 weak life signs detected." Without hesitation, Jake donned his spacesuit and prepared to board the alien craft. As he crossed the void between the ships, his mind raced with possibilities. Who were these aliens? What had happened to them? And how would this encounter change everything? The airlock on the alien ship opened with surprising ease, as if welcoming him aboard. Jake stepped inside, the artificial gravity activating beneath his feet. The interior was bathed in a soft, pulsating light that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Following his suit's life sign detector, Jake made his way deeper into the ship. He rounded a corner and froze, his breath catching in his throat. Before him lay 4 alien beings, each secured in what appeared to be stasis pods. They were humanoid in shape, but their skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, shifting colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Jake approached the nearest pod, studying the alien within. She appeared female, with delicate features and long, flowing hair that seemed to float in an unseen current. Her eyes were closed, but Jake could see rapid movement beneath her eyelids, as if she were dreaming. A warning light flashed on the stasis pod, indicating failing life support. Jake knew he had to act fast. With some trial and error, he managed to deactivate the pods one by one, carefully transferring each alien to his own ship. As he moved the last one, her eyes fluttered open briefly, revealing irises that swirled with galaxies of color. She murmured something in a melodic language before slipping back into unconsciousness. Back aboard the Starseeker, Jake set a course away from the damaged alien vessel, watching as it finally succumbed to its injuries and exploded in a brilliant flash of light. He had saved the aliens, but now faced a new set of challenges. How would he communicate with them? And how would Earth's authorities react to his unauthorized rescue mission? Over the next few days, Jake worked tirelessly to ensure the aliens' comfort and recovery. He analyzed their physiology as best he could with his limited medical knowledge, relieved to find that they seemed to be responding well to the ship's atmosphere and nutrition supplements. On the 4th day, as Jake was reviewing some data on his tablet, he heard a soft sound behind him. Turning, he found himself face to face with one of the aliens, now fully awake and regarding him with curious, swirling eyes. "Hello," Jake said softly, raising his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "I'm Jake. I'm here to help." The alien tilted her head, studying him intently. Then, to Jake's amazement, she spoke in perfect English. "I am Lyra. Thank you for saving us, Jake of Earth." Jake's jaw dropped. You speak English? How is that possible?" Lyra smiled, an expression that lit up her entire face. "We Xerillians are empaths. While in stasis, our minds connected with yours, allowing us to learn your language and some of your customs. Before Jake could respond, the other three aliens entered the room, each regarding him with a mixture of curiosity and gratitude. Lyra introduced them as Aria, Nova, and Celeste. As the group settled into the ship's small common area, Lyra's expression grew somber. "We owe you a great debt, Jake of Earth. But I'm afraid we've also brought great danger to your doorstep." Jake leaned forward, sensing the weight of her words. "What do you mean? What happened to your ship?" Aria, the tallest of the four with hair that seemed to shimmer like starlight, spoke up. "Our homeworld, Zerilia, was attacked by the Kralithax Empire, a ruthless race bent on galactic domination. We were on a diplomatic mission to seek allies when our ship was ambushed. We are all that remains of our mission," Nova added, her voice barely above a whisper. "Perhaps all that remains of our people." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The idea of an entire civilization being wiped out was almost too much to comprehend. "I'm so sorry," he said, struggling to find the right words. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Celeste, who had been quiet until now, met Jake's gaze with eyes that seemed to hold the depths of the ocean. "You've already done so much, but we must ask for more. We need to reach the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime. It's our last hope of mounting a defense against the Kralithax." Jake's mind reeled. Nexus Prime was on the other side of the galaxy, far beyond Earth's explored space. Such a journey would take months, maybe years. It would mean abandoning his mission, defying Earth's non-intervention policies, and potentially bringing the wrath of this Kralithax Empire down upon humanity. But as he looked at the four Zerilians, their eyes filled with hope and desperation. Jake knew he couldn't refuse. This was bigger than him, bigger than Earth. The fate of entire civilizations hung in the balance. "All right," Jake said, squaring his shoulders. "We'll go to Nexus Prime. But first, we need to make some modifications to the Starseeker. It's not equipped for such a long journey." The Zerilians' faces lit up with relief and gratitude. Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand on Jake's arm. The touch sent a tingling sensation through his body, and he felt a wave of emotions that weren't his own: gratitude, hope, and something else he couldn't quite identify. "Thank you, Jake," Lyra said softly. "Your kindness and bravery will not be forgotten." As Jake began plotting their course and making preparations for the long journey ahead, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had changed irrevocably. He had set out to explore the stars, but now found himself embroiled in a galactic conflict with four alien women who seemed to be able to read his very thoughts. The Starseeker hummed to life, its engines pushing them deeper into uncharted space. Jake watched as the stars streaked by, each one taking them further from everything he had ever known. He thought about Earth, about the life he was leaving behind, and wondered if he would ever see his home again. But when he looked at the Zerilians, Lyra's determined expression, Aria's quiet strength, Nova's inquisitive gaze, and Celeste's serene smile, Jake knew he had made the right choice. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever dangers they might face, they would face them together. As the Starseeker carried them into the unknown, Jake couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement mixed with his apprehension. He had dreamed of adventures among the stars, of making a difference in the universe. Now that dream was becoming a reality in ways he could never have imagined. Little did Jake know that this was only the beginning. The journey to Nexus Prime would test him in ways he couldn't fathom, pushing the limits of his courage, ingenuity, and heart. And somewhere along the way, amidst the dangers and wonders of the cosmos, he would discover that saving the Zerilians was more than just an act of kindness. It was the first step on a path that would change the fate of the galaxy itself. As the first leg of their journey came to an end, Jake found himself stealing glances at each of the Zerilians, marveling at their alien beauty and the depth of emotion he could sense from them. He couldn't help but wonder what twists and turns awaited them on this grand adventure, and how his relationship with these fascinating beings would evolve along the way. With a deep breath, Jake set the Starseeker on autopilot and turned to his new companions. "All right," he said with a smile that was equal parts nervous and excited. "Who's ready for the adventure of a lifetime?" The Xerillians exchanged glances, their eyes sparkling with a mixture of anticipation and something Jake couldn't quite define. As they looked back at him, their smiles seemed to hold a secret, one that Jake suspected he would soon discover, for better or for worse. And with that, the Starseeker plunged deeper into the cosmic unknown, carrying its human captain and alien passengers towards a destiny that would reshape the very fabric of the galaxy. Journey through the stars. The Starseeker glided through the cosmic void, its hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Inside, Jake Harrison sat at the helm, his eyes fixed on the swirling patterns of a nebula that stretched across the view screen. It had been 3 weeks since he'd rescued the 4 Xerillian women, and each day brought new wonders and challenges. "Jake, may I join you?" Lyra's melodic voice pulled him from his reverie. He turned to see her standing in the doorway, her iridescent skin shimmering in the low light of the cockpit. "Of course," Jake smiled, gesturing to the co-pilot's seat. As Lyra settled beside him, he felt the now familiar warmth of her empathic presence. "Couldn't sleep." Lyra shook her head, her star-like eyes fixed on the nebula. "It's all so vast," she whispered. "I never imagined I'd see such wonders, especially after." Her voice trailed off, a wave of sorrow washing over her. Jake reached out, hesitating for a moment before placing his hand on hers. "We'll find a way to save your people, Lyra. I promise." She turned to him, a sad smile playing on her lips. "Your kindness continues to amaze me, Jake of Earth. But I fear we may be too late." Before Jake could respond, an alarm blared through the ship. Red warning lights flashed across the console as the computer's voice rang out. "Alert. Unknown vessel approaching. Weapons systems detected." Jake's hands flew across the controls, bringing up the tactical display. His heart sank as he saw the massive ship bearing down on them. "It's a Kralthax cruiser," he muttered, recognizing the design from the data the Xerillians had shared. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "They found us." "Not if I can help it," Jake growled, his jaw set with determination. He opened the ship's intercom. "Everyone, strap in. We're about to do some fancy flying." As Aria, Nova, and Celeste scrambled to secure themselves, Jake's mind raced through their options. The Starseeker was fast and agile, but it wasn't built for combat. Their only hope was to outmaneuver the larger ship and escape. The Kralthax cruiser opened fire, plasma bolts streaking past the Starseeker's hull. Jake's hands danced across the controls, sending the ship into a series of wild evasive maneuvers. The inertial dampeners strained to keep up, and Jake felt the G-forces pressing him back into his seat. "Jake," Aria's voice came over the intercom, tight with tension. "I think I can help. My people have a natural affinity for spatial awareness. If you let me link with the ship's sensors, I might be able to predict their firing patterns." "Do it," Jake replied without hesitation. He learned to trust the Xerillians' unique abilities over the past weeks. Suddenly, Jake felt a new presence in his mind. Aria's consciousness, expanded and intertwined with the ship's systems. It was disorienting at first, but then he saw it, ghostly outlines of where the Kralthax shots would land, seconds before they fired. With this newfound awareness, Jake piloted the Starseeker through a dizzying series of twists and turns. They weaved through the barrage of enemy fire, each near miss causing the ship to shudder. "We can't keep this up forever," Nova called out. "We need a plan." Jake's eyes darted across the tactical display, searching for any advantage. Then he saw it, a dense asteroid field just beyond the nebula. It was risky, but it might be their only chance. "Hold on tight," he warned, pushing the engines to their limit. The Starseeker shot forward, plunging into the colorful gases of the nebula. The Kralthax cruiser followed, its massive bulk struggling to keep pace with the nimbler ship. As they emerged from the other side of the nebula, Jake aimed straight for the heart of the asteroid field. Massive chunks of rock and ice loomed before them, creating a treacherous maze. "Jake, what are you doing?" Celeste cried out, her usual serenity shaken by fear. "Trust me," Jake replied, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. With Aria's help, he guided the Starseeker through the asteroid field, narrowly avoiding collisions at every turn. The Kralfax cruiser, unable to match their maneuverability, was forced to slow down. Its weapons fire became sporadic, more focused on avoiding the asteroids than hitting its target. Jake saw their chance. He spotted a massive asteroid, easily twice the size of their pursuer. With a series of precise movements, he piloted the Starseeker around it, using its bulk for cover. "Nova," he called out, "I need you to use your bioluminescence. Make it look like we've been hit, like we're leaking plasma." Nova didn't hesitate. Through the viewport, Jake saw a trail of glowing energy begin to stream from the ship, a perfect imitation of a damaged engine. As they rounded the far side of the asteroid, Jake cut the engines. The Starseeker drifted, dark and seemingly lifeless, as the Kralfax cruiser lumbered past their hiding spot. For several tense minutes, they waited in silence. Jake held his breath, acutely aware of every small sound in the ship. Finally, the tactical display showed the cruiser moving away, apparently satisfied that its quarry had been destroyed. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the Starseeker. Jake slumped in his seat, the adrenaline leaving him feeling drained but exhilarated. "That was incredible," Lyra breathed, looking at Jake with a mixture of awe and something else, something that made his heart skip a beat. As the danger passed, Jake became acutely aware of the Cerulean's emotions washing over him. Relief, gratitude, and admiration. No, it was stronger than that. He felt a warmth, an affection that seemed to radiate from all four of them. It was a team effort," Jake stammered, suddenly feeling self-conscious under their gazes. "We all played our part." Aria's voice came over the intercom, tinged with amusement. "Ever humble, our Jake. But make no mistake, your quick thinking and skill saved us all today." As Jake restarted the engines and plotted a new course, one that would hopefully keep them out of the Kralfax's path, he couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in such a short time. He had set out as a solitary explorer, and now found himself the protector and what? Friend. Something more. To these four remarkable beings. The journey to Nexus Prime was far from over, and Jake knew they would face more dangers along the way. But in that moment, as he felt the warm glow of the Cerulean's affection, he realized that he wouldn't have it any other way. As the Starseeker resumed its course, leaving the asteroid field behind, Jake found himself stealing glances at Lyra. She caught his eye and smiled, a gesture that sent a flutter through his chest. He quickly looked away, focusing on the controls, but he couldn't ignore the growing feelings inside him. Feelings that were quickly becoming more complicated than he ever could have imagined. Little did Jake know that this harrowing escape was just the beginning. The bond forged in the heat of danger would continue to grow, challenging his perceptions and his heart in ways he never thought possible. As the Starseeker carried them deeper into uncharted space, Jake Harrison, the human who had saved 4 alien women, was about to discover that he might need some saving of his own. From the uncharted territories of love and loyalty in a vast and dangerous galaxy. A daring plan. The Starseeker drifted in the shadow of a gas giant, its systems running on minimal power to avoid detection. Inside, Jake and the 4 Ceruleans huddled around a holographic display of their current sector. "We're here," Jake said, pointing to a blinking dot. "And Nexus Prime is still weeks away at our current speed." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "The Kralfax are everywhere. We can't keep running forever." Nova, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with anxiety, spoke up. "Perhaps we should find a place to hide, to wait them out." Jake shook his head. "We don't have that kind of time. Your people, your whole civilization, is counting on us reaching the Galactic Council. A tense silence fell over the group. Then, Celeste's eyes lit up with an idea. What if we didn't run? What if we fought back? All eyes turned to her in surprise. Celeste, usually the most serene of the group, now radiated a fierce determination. What do you mean? Arya asked, leaning forward with interest. Celeste gestured to the holographic map. There's a Krellthax outpost in the next system. It's small, meant for monitoring rather than defense. If we could infiltrate it, we might be able to gather intelligence on their fleet movements, maybe even find a safer route to Nexus Prime. Jake's mind raced with the possibilities. It was risky, incredibly so, but if they succeeded, we'd need a way in, he mused, and a way to access their systems without being detected. Lyra placed a hand on Jake's arm, sending a warm tingle through his body. I think I might have a solution for both. She turned to the others. Do you remember the chambeloid crystals we were transporting? The other Xyrillians nodded, their eyes widening in understanding. Chambeloid crystals? Jake asked, puzzled. Arya explained. They're a rare mineral from our world. When properly attuned, they can bend light around the wearer, creating a near-perfect camouflage. As for the systems, Lyra continued, Xyrillian empaths can sometimes interface with alien technology. It's not easy, and it's not always successful, but it's our best shot, Jake finished, a smile spreading across his face. He looked at each of the Xyrillians in turn, feeling a swell of pride and affection. You're all incredible, you know that. The next few days were a flurry of activity as they prepared for the mission. Jake and Arya worked on modifying the Starseeker's systems for stealth approaches, while Lyra and Nova experimented with the chambeloid crystals. Celeste, drawing on her diplomatic training, created detailed briefings on Krellthax behavior and base layouts. As Jake worked, he found himself constantly distracted by the Xyrillians. It wasn't just their alien beauty, though that certainly played a part. It was their intelligence, their courage, their unwavering determination in the face of overwhelming odds. He felt drawn to each of them in different ways. Lyra's compassion, Arya's strength, Nova's curiosity, Celeste's wisdom. One evening, as Jake was running final checks on their equipment, Lyra approached him. Jake, she said softly, may we talk? He nodded, setting aside his work. Of course. What's on your mind? Lyra hesitated, her iridescent skin shimmering with nervous energy. That is, all of us, we've noticed something. A change in your emotions towards us. Jake felt his heart rate quicken. Had he been that transparent? I'm not sure what you mean, he stammered. Lyra's eyes, swirling with galaxies of color, met his. We feel it too, Jake. This connection between us. It's more than gratitude for saving us. It's something deeper. Before Jake could respond, the other Xyrillians entered the room. They surrounded him, each radiating a mix of nervousness and hope. In our culture, Arya explained, her voice barely above a whisper, it's not uncommon for multiple partners to form a deep, lasting bond. Jake's mind reeled. Were they suggesting what he thought they were suggesting? Nova stepped forward, taking his hand. We know it might seem strange to you, but we've all grown to care for you deeply, Jake, each in our own way. We're not asking for an answer now, Celeste added quickly. We know you need time to process this, and we have a mission to focus on. But we wanted you to know how we feel. Jake stood there, speechless. His heart raced with a mix of emotions, surprise, confusion, and yes, a deep affection for these incredible beings. But before he could formulate a response, the ship's alarms blared to life. Proximity alert, the computer announced. Krellthax patrol ship detected. The moment shattered, everyone springing into action. As Jake rushed to the cockpit, his mind whirled. The mission, the fate of the galaxy, and now this unexpected revelation. It was almost too much to process. But as he took the helm, Feeling the presence of the 4 Xyrillians behind him, Jake knew one thing for certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The Starseeker slipped silently through space, approaching the Kralthax outpost. Jake's hands were steady on the controls, but his heart raced with a mixture of anticipation and fear. This was it, the moment that could change everything. "Remember the plan," he said softly, more to himself than to the others. "We get in, we get the intel, we get out. No unnecessary risks." Lyra placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, and Jake felt a wave of calm wash over him. He met her eyes, saw the trust and affection there, and took a deep breath. The outpost loomed before them, a dark, angular structure against the backdrop of stars. Jake guided the Starseeker into a blind spot in the station's sensor array, a weakness Celeste had identified in her analysis. "Docking complete," Jake announced, initiating chameleoid camouflage. The Xyrillians activated their crystals, their forms shimmering and then seeming to vanish. Jake felt a momentary pang of vulnerability. He would be relying entirely on their guidance once inside the station. As they prepared to board, Jake felt a gentle touch on his arm. Though he couldn't see her, he knew it was Aria. "Jake," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "Whatever happens in there, know that you've already changed our lives in ways we can never repay. You've given us hope, and so much more." Jake swallowed hard, fighting back the surge of emotions her words evoked. "Let's make sure we all get out of this alive," he said. "Then we can talk about everything else." With that, they stepped into the airlock, ready to infiltrate the heart of enemy territory. As the door hissed open, revealing the dark corridors of the Kralthax outpost, Jake steeled himself for whatever lay ahead. Little did he know that the true test of his courage, loyalty, and heart was just beginning. The fate of galaxies, civilizations, and his own future hung in the balance as they ventured into the unknown. Battle and sacrifice. The corridors of the Kralthax outpost were a maze of shadows and tension. Jake moved cautiously, guided by the invisible presence of the Xyrillians around him. Their chameleoid crystals bent light perfectly, rendering them undetectable to the naked eye, but Jake could feel their presence, a comforting warmth in the cold alien environment. "Control room ahead," Celeste's voice whispered in his ear. 2 guards at the entrance. Jake's heart pounded as they approached. This was the moment of truth. Either their plan would work, or they'd be discovered and likely killed on the spot. Suddenly, Lyra's voice rang out in perfect mimicry of the harsh Kralthax language. The guards turned, confused by the disembodied sound. In that moment of distraction, Nova unleashed a burst of blinding bioluminescence. Jake sprang into action, his combat training kicking in. With 2 swift, precise strikes, he incapacitated the guards before they could raise an alarm. As they crumpled to the floor, Jake felt a mixture of pride and unease. He'd never considered himself a violent man, but here he was, fighting to save not just the Xyrillians, but potentially the entire galaxy. "Quickly," Aria urged as they entered the control room. "I'll interface with their systems." Jake, watch the door. "Lyra, be ready to assist if I encounter any psychic barriers." Jake took up position by the entrance, his every sense on high alert. Behind him, he could hear the soft hum of energy as Aria connected with the Kralthax computer systems. Minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. Jake's palms were sweaty on his weapon, his eyes darting between the corridor and the shimmering outline of Aria at the console. "I've got it," Aria finally announced, her voice trained with effort. Fleet movements, communication protocols, even the location of their main staging area. Relief flooded through Jake, but it was short-lived. An alarm suddenly blared through the station, red lights flashing ominously. "We've been detected," Celeste said, her usual calm voice tinged with fear. "How?" Jake demanded, already moving to secure the door. Nova's voice was grim. "The guards, they must have had some kind of biolink." The system noticed when they lost consciousness. There was no time for recriminations. Jake's mind raced, formulating a plan. Area, can you upload that data to the Starseeker? Already done, she confirmed. Good. Now, we need to. Jake's words were cut off as the door exploded inward, sending him flying across the room. Through the smoke and debris, hulking Kralfax soldiers poured in, their weapons trained on the spot where Jake had landed. Pain lanced through Jake's body, but he forced himself to move. He could hear the sounds of struggle around him, the Xyrillians fighting with everything they had. A Kralfax soldier loomed over Jake, weapon aimed at his head. In that moment, time seemed to slow. Jake saw flashes of his life, his childhood on Earth, his first solo flight, the moment he found the Xyrillians. And then, unbidden, came images of a future he might never see, a life among the stars with these four incredible beings who had come to mean so much to him. Just as the Kralfax was about to fire, a blinding flash of light filled the room. Jake felt himself being lifted, carried by unseen hands. His vision swam, consciousness slipping away as the sounds of battle faded. When Jake awoke, he was back on the Starseeker, hurtling through space. His body ached, and he could feel the sting of burns and cuts across his skin. But he was alive. Lyra's face swam into view, her eyes filled with worry and relief. "Jake," she breathed, "you're awake. We were so scared." Jake tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. "The others?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "We're here," came Aria's voice from nearby. A little battered, but alive. As his vision cleared, Jake saw the other Xyrillians gathered around him. They all bore signs of the fierce battle they'd just escaped, but their eyes shone with a mixture of triumph and concern. "The data?" Jake asked, remembering their mission. Celeste nodded, her expression grim but satisfied. "We got it all. And more. Jake, we know where their main fleet is gathering. If we can get this information to the Galactic Council, we might just have a chance of stopping them." Jake finished, a spark of hope igniting in his chest. But their victory was short-lived. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring once again. "Kralfax warship," Nova reported, her hands flying over the controls. "They must have followed us from the outpost. They're charging weapons." Jake forced himself to his feet, ignoring the pain. He stumbled to the pilot's seat, taking control of the ship. "Everyone, battle stations. This isn't over yet." As the Starseeker weaved through a barrage of enemy fire, Jake felt a new resolve burning within him. He looked at the Xyrillians, Lyra's determination, Aria's strength, Nova's quick thinking, Celeste's calm under pressure. In that moment, he knew with absolute certainty that his feelings for them were real and deep. "Whatever happens," Jake said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them, "I want you all to know, I love you. Each of you, in your own way. If we make it through this, I want to explore what that means, together." The Xyrillian's emotions washed over him, joy, love, and a fierce protectiveness. Their bond, already strong, seemed to crystallize in that moment of shared danger and declaration. As Jake pushed the Starseeker to its limits, outmaneuvering the much larger Kralfax ship, he knew that they were fighting for more than just the fate of the galaxy. They were fighting for a future together, a future that suddenly seemed brighter and more precious than ever before. The battle raged on, the vastness of space lit up by weapons fire and explosions. Jake's hands danced across the controls, his mind working in perfect synchronization with the Xyrillians. They weren't just a crew anymore. They were something more, something unbreakable. But the Kralfax warship was relentless. A lucky shot rocked the Starseeker, systems failing across the board. As warning lights flashed and alarms blared, Jake made a split-second decision. "The data," he said, his voice tight with determination. "We have to make sure it reaches the Galactic Council, no matter what." Understanding dawned in the Xyrillian's eyes. Celeste moved quickly, preparing a data burst transmission. "It's ready," she announced. "But Jake, if we send this, they'll be able to track the signal," Jake finished. "I know, but it's our only choice." With a shared look of resolve, they activated the transmission. The precious intelligence they'd fought so hard to obtain streaked across the stars, carrying with it the hope for countless civilizations. But their act of defiance didn't go unnoticed. The Kralfax warship redoubled its assault, its weapons tearing through the Starseeker's failing shields. "Hull breach in Section 3. Nova called out, her voice strained. "We can't take much more of this." Jake's mind raced, searching for a solution. Then he saw it, a nearby nebula, its swirling gases offering a slim chance at escape. "Hold on to something," he warned, pushing the engines beyond their limits. The Starseeker shot forward, plunging into the colorful chaos of the nebula. The Kralfax ship followed, its massive bulk struggling against the turbulent gases. Jake weaved through the cosmic storm, using every trick he'd ever learned as a pilot. Suddenly, a massive bolt of energy from the nebula struck the Starseeker. Systems overloaded, and Jake felt a searing pain as his console exploded in a shower of sparks. As consciousness faded, Jake's last thought was of the Xyrillians, their faces, their love, and the future they might never have. Then darkness claimed him, and the Starseeker drifted, battered and silent, in the heart of the nebula, turning the tide. Consciousness returned to Jake in fragments, the soft hum of unfamiliar machinery, the scent of alien herbs, and the gentle touch of familiar hands. As his eyes fluttered open, he found himself in a vast, gleaming medical bay, unlike anything he'd ever seen before. "He's awake," Lyra's voice, filled with relief and joy, rang out. Jake tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced him back down. "What? Where are we?" he managed to croak. The 4 Xyrillians gathered around him, their faces a mixture of concern and happiness. It was Celeste who answered, her voice calm but tinged with excitement. "We're on Nexus Prime, Jake. We made it." Jake's mind reeled, trying to piece together his fragmented memories. But how? "The last thing I remember. The nebula," Area finished for him. "We thought it was the end, but it turned out to be our salvation." Nova picked up the narrative, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with energy. The energy surge that knocked you out also shorted out the Kralfax ship's systems. "We drifted for days, barely conscious, until a Galactic Council patrol found us." "The data?" Jake asked, suddenly remembering their mission. Lyra smiled, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "It got through, Jake. Thanks to you. The Council was prepared when the Kralfax launched their attack. They'd been pushed back on every front." Jake let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. They'd done it. Against all odds, they'd succeeded. As Jake recovered over the next few days, he learned more about the dramatic turn of events. The intelligence they'd stolen had been crucial, allowing the Galactic Council to mount an effective defense against the Kralfax invasion. What's more, the story of their daring mission had spread, inspiring resistance movements across the galaxy. One morning, as Jake stood at a massive window overlooking the breathtaking spires of Nexus Prime, he felt the presence of the Xyrillians behind him. He turned to face them, his heart swelling with emotion. "I meant what I said," he began, his voice soft but firm. "Before the battle, about loving each of you." The Xyrillians exchanged glances, their emotions a swirling mix of hope and nervousness. Lyra stepped forward, taking Jake's hand. "And we meant what we said about our culture's view on relationships. Jake, we would be honored if you would consider joining with us. All of us." Jake looked at each of them in turn. Lyra's compassion, Aria's strength, Nova's curiosity, and Celeste's wisdom. He thought about the journey they'd been through, the bonds forged in the face of unimaginable danger and adversity. "I don't fully understand how this works," Jake admitted with a small smile. "But I know that I can't imagine my life without any of you. So yes, I'd like to try." The joy that radiated from the Zerillians was almost palpable. They surrounded Jake, each touching him in their own way. A hand on his shoulder, a caress of his cheek, a gentle embrace. As they stood there, overlooking the galactic capital, a new chapter began to unfold. The Kralfax threat was far from over, and there would be many challenges ahead. But Jake knew that whatever the future held, he would face it with these incredible beings by his side. In the days that followed, Jake and the Zerillians were hailed as heroes across the galaxy. They were invited to join a new task force, combining the best of human ingenuity with Zerillian abilities and the resources of the Galactic Council. As they prepared for their next mission, Jake couldn't help but marvel at the twist his life had taken. He had set out as a lone explorer and found not just adventure, but love and purpose on a scale he never could have imagined. Standing on the bridge of their new ship, far more advanced than the faithful old Starseeker, Jake looked at his Zerillian partners with a mix of love and determination. "Ready for our next adventure?" he asked, a grin spreading across his face. The Zerillians responded with enthusiasm, each in their own unique way. As they set course for the stars, Jake knew that this was just the beginning. They had saved the galaxy once, and they would do it again and again, facing whatever challenges the universe threw at them, together. The ship's engines hummed to life, propelling them into the vast unknown. Jake Harrison, once a solitary human explorer, now stood at the helm of not just a ship, but a new kind of family. With the love of 4 extraordinary Zerillian women and the fate of the galaxy in his hands, he was ready for whatever lay ahead. As they shot into hyperspace, the stars streaking past in a brilliant display, Jake couldn't help but smile. This was more than he had ever dreamed of, and yet it felt absolutely right. The human who had rescued 4 alien girls had, in turn, been rescued himself, finding love, purpose, and a place in the grand tapestry of the cosmos. And so, their greatest adventure began, not just as heroes of the galaxy, but as pioneers of a new kind of interstellar love and understanding. The stars stretched out before them, infinite in their possibilities, much like the love and bond they shared.